Are you ready for the ultimate bikepacking weekend adventure? Join us for an unforgettable self-supported bikepacking trip through Southwest Virginia. The Grayson Gravel Pie Bikepacking Adventure travels along the Virginia Creeper Trail, the beautiful gravel roads of Grayson County, Virginia, and the New River Trail. All lodging and camping arrangements are included, along with daily routes and guides riding along with you. This self-supported adventure offers resupply opportunities every 20 miles for your food and water needs. Find out more at graveltraveldirt.com.
You're listening to Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt.
Hi everybody, I'm Brian.
I'm Joey.
Folks, this is episode 247 of Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt. If you're new here, this is the podcast where we talk about gravel bikes, adventure biking, bikepacking, bike camping. Tonight, we're going to talk about some really cool bike routes, and that qualifies as just playing bikes.
Yeah.
So we had a great conversation. A little bit later, you're going to hear from David Landis. Now, David is such a visionary leader and 15-plus years of experience in trail development, guidebook publication, outdoor adventure tourism, and he's also the brain trust behind the Mid-Atlantic's probably premier long-distance bikepacking routes with TransVirginia and Grayson Gravel, and he's got a new one we're going to talk about, so you're going to have to stick around for that was just released and sounds super cool. Before we get to the rest of the show, make sure to go over to the show notes, check out the discount codes we have there, support those folks. Joey, I've gotten phone calls about jerseys and bibs.
Oh, you got phone calls?
I got phone calls or emails or something. I've got contacts. What's going on with that?
Who's contacted you? I need these names. Oh, I wrote it right here. And I was going to forget.
I saw you put it in there.
Because I was going to close the store 2 weeks ago, but last week I was a little preoccupied.
Has anybody ordered anything?
I don't know. So actually, technically, we started this driving down to Florida, and Philip sent it to my work email, which I didn't check at all, the store. And I've had it open since. We kind of re-upped it. So we worked on a Merino Tech tee from Cutaway, which is just a solid burnt orange with our logo on the chest. No extra fluff. There is no pockets in the back. That is a project coming out later this year I'm working on with Philip. Well, he's already starting to work on it, but we're going to do a run with him. And then we are doing a set of cargo bibs. The cargo bibs are just all black Cutaway Pro 3s, where we're introducing our first rendition, the Skyline. What are we calling that?
The OG jersey.
The orange and blue sunset.
Yeah, the Skyline, kind of like blue.
I don't want to say Skyline because Matt will sue us from Ridge Supply because that's one of his names. But that is going to be on the bottom part of the bib, very clean. So that way it'll work with the merino wool. Mm-hmm. It'll work with the originals, and it should blend with our green one with the topo lines. Yeah. So
now
it's the
cargo bib 3, not the 4?
Yeah, because they size a little differently.
Okay.
We've always used the Pro 3s.
Okay.
I don't know why I've mentioned all the names, but it is the Cutaway Pro 3 bib.
Got it.
And we will have discount codes for Patreon supporters, and I will post that on Patreon today.
And the link for the store.
Yeah. It is in our Instagram bio. No, maybe I've had it up a few times.
Okay.
I'll make an actual post where it's stuck.
I'll put it on the website too.
Yeah.
I'll put it on the website.
So I'm going to tell Philip to close that next Sunday night.
Okay.
No, this upcoming Sunday night.
No, so that'll only give people like a couple of days for them to hear this.
Well, I've had it for like a month.
But nobody knew about it, I don't think.
Well, that's their problem.
I can't help what you don't know.
It is, I'm just going to start. No, if I don't set a deadline, we will have plenty of time. So today's the 6th. It'll come out the 8th. I'm going to close it on Valentine's Day, the 14th.
I could probably drop this episode a little early.
I'm going to close it on the night of Valentine's Day.
Okay.
The 14th.
Okay. So tell your honey to buy you a jersey
yes.
and some bibs.
They are the same cut as the other Tech tees we've always done. So if you want a looser fitting jersey and you wear an extra large and it's snug, size up.
Okay, so I would go XX. Okay.
I don't know. I've been wearing extra large. It's a tighter fit, and if I want a baggier, I wear a double X.
So I don't think I ever got one of the original Tech tees.
Oh.
So I will just go with the double.
Double X if you're mine and Brian's sizes, if you want it somewhat loose and baggy, if you're okay with a little bit. I don't mind the snugger fit on certain rides because I have a bunch of Tech tees from Philip of other.
Well,
So that's all I'm saying about that.
gotcha.
And it's merino. It's a blend of merino.
Okay.
So hopefully it doesn't smell.
I've been big with the merino
Yeah.
lately. I love the fact that that stuff doesn't smell. In fact, I got all that winter gear last year. The merino base layers, a mid layer, socks. I've probably washed that stuff maybe twice.
Explains a
No,
lot.
because it doesn't smell. It's fantastic. I love it.
We need merino bibs.
I need
we were talking about that at the
merino
deli.
everything.
Yeah, merino bibs with a chamois in them would be nice. But I
That
guess the chamois
would.
might smell.
I
I don't know. Could be soft on your
don't know.
soft tissue.
You also could get to the point where you don't need as much chamois. That would be a really nice, like,
Oh, true.
once you've gotten to the point in your.
I'm going to ask Philip why no one's done it yet, and he's probably going to give me a really good answer. That's just really obvious.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's price. I don't know.
Well, we had a nice weekend ride last weekend.
We did.
That was nice. We did 40 some odd miles. We're getting ready for Monster Cross. We're getting ready for Croatan.
Yep.
Excited about Buck 50 coming up. Excited about Monster Cross as well. And I am ready for this spring to spring.
Well, Saturday's going to be 61.
Yep, we're gonna have another beautiful prep day ride.
Yeah.
On Saturday. I'm excited, but that was really nice over the weekend. That was,
It was cold, but
it warmed up as the
nice
day
ride.
progressed. We started early, which I kind of like.
I mean, it'd be nice to start at noon, but I'm also
It takes up your whole day.
we dilly-dally a little bit sometimes here and there.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to kind of
Yeah,
relax.
I
on
want
a
to get
ride.
back by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Yeah, in time for lunch.
Yeah,
Just in time
'cause we go out for lunch.
for somewhere to get some lunch. So.
Yeah.
You want to jump over to Strava Club?
Let's see. All right. Oh, John Paul.
John Paul.
Isn't that an episode? John Paul from Seinfeld. Remember the John Paul?
Yes.
Jonathan Paul from Verona, Pennsylvania with 205.2. Jeremy Cobb from West Virginia with 161.9.
It was either Jeremy or Jason that messaged me about the jerseys. I was one of the
really?
two. Yeah, I can't remember now which one it was.
And then Chico Hercules from Austin, Texas with 150.7.
Nice job.
That is an awesome name, Chico. Breaking to the top 100, you need it. Yeah, we had a nice weekend. 125.5. That's up a lot.
Jumped up like 20 miles.
Yeah. We're at 956. I think we need a hard cutoff of April 1st for 1,000 members.
You want to do it?
Yeah, because otherwise we've been kicking this for like 2 years.
Okay.
April
right.
1st for the mustaches by April 1st for 1,000 Strava Club members.
So we only need, what is it, 44? We're at 956?
Mm-hmm.
So we can do it, people. Let's all band together.
Yeah.
Let's all band together and get Joey to shave his beard off.
Well, you're starting to grow a beard too.
It's not going to last very long. It's getting ready to go away. So Gravel Travel Dirt on Strava. Just go
Yeah,
search
just
for
put
it.
it in the search.
Yeah, just
Google
put
it. It
put
doesn't
in the
matter.
Search. You'll find it. And folks, stick around for this conversation with David. Joining us now, folks, is David Landis. Dave, it is so great to have you join us for a conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So in the world of bike packing and long-distance adventuring by bike, I think your name is pretty well known, but especially here in the Mid-Atlantic, but probably like all over. But to cover all of our bases, can you take just a minute and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's David Landis. I'm currently based in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley. And my life's taken me a bunch of different places, but this is where I call home now. And I've been working to develop routes, trails, adventure travel experiences for about 15 years. A lot of that was out of the U.S., but I've been back in the East Coast in Virginia for the last 8 years, since 2016. And yeah, it's kind of a long story. Maybe we'll get to that. But,
Okay.
But yeah, like what I love to do is explore and create experiences.
Cool.
And that's been kind of a personal journey that became a professional journey. And so how I earn a living is doing the same sort of stuff. Cool. I design routes, which has been hiking trails internationally, these bikepacking gravel routes, and publish a series of guidebooks to different international hiking trails. Most of them are Camino Santiago routes in Europe,
Okay.
and then a few in the Middle East as well, where I used to live.
I saw that. I visited your LinkedIn. Very professional. This may be the first guest we've ever had that's had a LinkedIn profile. And Joey, our second week in a row with a Harrisonburg connection.
Yes.
Is that like a sign or something that like, I don't know what it could be a sign of, but maybe it's just a cool place.
It's a happening place to be for cycling.
It's a hopping in place. David, you've had your hand in the creation of some I'll say pretty stellar bikepacking routes right here in the Mid-Atlantic. Speaking of TransVirginia, Grayson Gravel, and a new one I hope we're going to get to talk about, Hills and Hollows. So I want to back up a little bit. How do you make a living building trails, and how did you get here? How did you get to the point in your career where that's what you get paid to do?
It's a long road, I'll say. Yeah, I mean, it's been, an adventure and a privilege to be a part of creating all these routes for sure. But yeah, it's kind of a long story. Like I said, I was planning to go to medical school and become a doctor. Actually, that's what I studied in college. And my university required the student study abroad for a semester. And I ended up taking 3.5 months and studying in the Middle East with my university. And at that point, that kind of shifted my life trajectory and I think really opened up the world for me. And after that trip, I decided I wasn't quite ready to keep going with my educational career track, but I wanted to just travel and explore. So I took 1.5 years and with a friend from college, a roommate, decided let's go travel around the world on a budget, backpacking, biking, sailing, whatever we can do, just to sort of learn about the world. So that ended up, taking me to over 40 countries in that 1.5 years.
40 countries. Wait a minute. Time out. 40 countries in 1.5 years. Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind.
That's cool.
It was like half of it was probably in like 30 of those countries, and the other half was sort of a deeper dive into a few countries.
Gotcha.
So like the first stretch was going all the way through the Americas down to Patagonia, and then flew to the Middle East and hiked some long trails, sailed the Med to Greece, and then I grabbed a bike and I spent 3 months bike traveling, touring through Eastern Europe, ending in Germany. And that was really like the first long self-supported bike trip I had done, which I sort of just fell in love with as like my ideal way to travel, meet people, see the world. It was like faster than walking, but not like too fast, like a vehicle. And you're always free and in control. And you had sort of this vibe where you weren't like this suspicious person with just a backpack. Like you sort of had a purpose, with the bike. So people kind of were curious and inviting you into their homes and all that stuff. And so then that trip took me, then I went to Asia, spent some time in Himalayas, and then came back home and was like, what do I do with my life? And I wasn't quite sure. So I decided I wanted to go back to the Middle East. So I bought a one-way ticket there and with a friend I had met through hiking, and we created a trekking route that connected communities, and we're trying to sort of be social entrepreneurs and build a better place, a better world through these trails that connected people that weren't necessarily connected otherwise.
That is massively different than starting out to be like some sort of a medical career, isn't it? Yeah. Well, right on too.
By this point, the medical career was, a distant memory, I think. One thing led to another, and I ended up living in the Middle East for about 10 years. My wife as well, she's from Virginia, but she had gone to university with me, and then we ended up both there. And some really, really crazy projects all over, ready for something new, but I wanted to keep, building on that stuff. So I started riding again. And I was born in Harrisonburg, actually. It's kind of ironic. I ended up back here in some ways. But it's such a cool place to live and to ride, as I know you've heard about. But like we're like so close to the GW National Forest, like 10, 12 miles to the west, Shendo National Park to the east. And like everywhere you ride here, it's like either beautiful country, farmland, or you have all this public land you can kind of explore. So I just started like, regrouping, riding, and these Camino guidebooks we have in Spain, I was planning to go back there with a bike and use the bike instead of hiking to cover the ground to check for updates and stuff. So then I was like, oh, bike packing, this is a new thing for me, at least at that point.
Right.
And so I built up a packing bike, a Surly Troll, Revel 8 bags and all of that, and was planning this trip to Spain, which I went, I think 2016, rode that route. I was like, this is the best way to travel. I can cover these rugged trails,
Mm-hmm.
and it's comfortable and all that. So then I was like, oh, I want to do more. So I decided to ride the Great Divide route the following year. And, that was another amazing adventure, of course. But I think through that experience, I was like, I want to do something where I live. Like, I want to create a route that connects the length of the state. That's kind of like the Divide. Like, it's not really technical single track. It brings all these communities together in a way, and it's just a really well thought through route riding experience. So that's sort of where the TransVirginia came in.
So I've always told people, you want to, the bike allows you, when you travel, to be a traveler, not a tourist. It's like you get to see things that you wouldn't see if you were zooming through a space in a car going from point to point to point. The bike allows you to sort of connect with the people, maybe. I guess that's what it's always kind of been for me. I don't know. It's just so this type of work obviously is a passion. I would assume it's got to be a passion. I don't think this is the kind of thing you do without having some real skin in the game. Would that be what you look back at and say this is where that passion came from? Was that sort of maybe let's call it not a sabbatical or some sort of a journey that you went on there? Is that where that passion kind of comes from?
I think it. Yes. I think it was like, wow, the study abroad experience opened my eyes. Like, wow, the world's so much bigger than I thought. And like, I love being outside. I love the physical challenge. Like, let's put all that together. And then that year I spent out, just really solidified that for me into a way that I could never really turn back, I think. Right. So yeah, it's definitely a passion, but then it's like, how do you make a living, right? Is the other question. So, that's why I think developing the routes in the Middle East was sort of an entrepreneurial exercise. I ran a self-guided tour company for a while there. The guidebooks are sort of, financially sustainable because people buy them.
Right.
And then I started doing consulting with all of these different organizations doing economic development, trail-based tourism. So I had a pretty good sort of work history of that in the Middle East and in Asia and some in Europe and other places. But then I moved back here. I wasn't sure if that would translate necessarily.
Yeah,
but,
I was going to ask you, how did that
Yeah.
translate? From doing it abroad to doing it back here. How did that translate?
Well, it's been kind of a process, and the pandemic was part of it. I was still doing international consulting until the pandemic, quite a lot, not really anything local. The TransVirginia route development was just a personal passion project. I did get a grant from Virginia Tourism to promote it, which was really helpful to help put it out on a bigger platform, basically, for cyclists to find. But then during the pandemic, all this international work I had lined up just disappeared overnight, literally. Like, I was working in China. I was going to be in Wuhan developing this trail system. Imagine this, right? And then I get a call. They're like, we're not quite ready to move forward. They're like, the decision maker is really sick. And that was January 2020. So that was
was it COVID?
Experience.
Was it COVID?
Yeah, it was.
Oh man.
I mean, it's I was there 2 months before that on another project, but so that kind of started a whole trajectory of things. We had this guidebook coming out for a route in Italy, then Italy got hit, and then Spain. It's kind of all these plations.
No, wait a minute. It sounds like coronavirus is kind of following you through your travels. Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
If you travel enough, stuff happens everywhere. So, anyways, but so then I was like, what am I going to do? All this work I had lined up, and our guidebooks, which sort of depend on international travel, they disappeared too.
Sure.
The sales dropped 80% overnight. So I just started riding my bike, basically more than I ever had, and ended up sort of just racking up miles, and I was like, I'm gonna ride 25 centuries this year as a goal. And then I hit that in like April, and I was like, okay, now what am I gonna do? So yeah, I just use that as a time to really explore where I live, deeper and deeper, and trying to just like find all these obscure roads and connections, and mostly drawn to the gravel roads, like on a gravel bike. But it was more for me like about exploration and then connection. And through some of that time passed, people started to realize, wow, like this TransVirginia thing is really cool. It's really valuable. And different groups started contacting me from local tourism, like boards and county levels and regional levels, about developing some of these other routes. So then I started to add those into the mix of things I do. And that continues to grow for me. So it's pretty exciting.
You're doing, you're obviously racking up the miles. You mentioned your Shirley. What bikes are you riding right now?
Yeah, so I made a concerted effort last year to cut it down to 5.
Good on you.
Yeah, I still have the Troll. The Troll is like my international expedition bike. It has S&S couplers, so I can break it in half and throw it in someone's trunk if I need to. But mostly I'm on a Bear Claw Thunderhawk. It's my gravel bike that I have a couple wheel sets for, and moved everything to 1x12 for just simplicity. And so that's kind of my everyday bike. Depending where I'm going, I'll switch wheels. And then I have a Cutthroat that I raced the Divide on in 2022. That's sort of my bikepacking bike. That's set up with bags just ready to go at any point.
Nice.
Have a El Jefe, which is a Y Cycles and El Revel hardtail to kind of push beyond. That's meant to be a bikepacking bike, but I haven't done as much with it yet. And what else? I forget. I have a Surly Straggler single speed that I just sort of tear around town in.
Nice.
Transportation.
That's a nice stable right there.
Oh yeah.
That's a
that's a stable.
You do about everything with that.
That's a fun bike fold right there. I like that.
Try to simplify it. Yeah, we have a tandem too that I ride with the kids. We have 3 young kids, so we try to do a lot of like family bike adventure stuff as much as we can.
Yeah. Nice.
But you like titanium.
I do like titanium. Doesn't everyone?
It's truth. I think the titanium, it's skewing younger and younger and younger. It used to be that like, oh, you finally reached the age where you got titanium. Yeah. I think anymore it's the benefits are there, and it's skewing younger. Maybe younger people have got more disposable income now. I don't know what it is. Hey, let's talk about TransVirginia. Grand Depart is coming up May 18th. Walk us through the route, like maybe soup to nuts, kind of like what's it look like?
Yeah, so it's the TransVirginia route. It's a 565-mile route from Washington, D.C. to Damascus, Virginia, across the state, sort of from the northeast to the southwest. It kind of skirts the West Virginia state line, which in my opinion is where all the best mountains and riding are. So it leaves D.C. From the Lincoln Memorial on the C&O Canal. You have kind of a flat rollout along the Potomac, and then you start getting through gravel roads, Loudoun County. You cross the Shenandoah Valley out to the state line, and then you basically run ridges almost the whole length of the state, hopping up and down. It's 60% unpaved. There's like 2 miles of single track. It's characterized by these sort of really big climbs, in my opinion, kind of in sections, and how you think about it. And it gets, the first 150 miles are relatively flat compared to the rest of it. So it's like 43,000 feet over 565. But if you take out that first stretch, it's kind of like the standard 10,000 feet per 100 miles that characterizes riding here. And so that's the main route, the first one I put together. And then I've added a couple other routes. There's a valley route, I call it, that it's the same corridor, intersects a bunch, but you could ride it on like 35s or 38s. It doesn't have the chunky fire road sections. So it's a lot more approachable. And if you get in kind of over your head, you can jump to that route as well.
Nice. Or if if you needed, or if something goes wrong and you just needed to dial it back a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Now the Grand Depart's May 18th. How many people actually take part in racing that?
Racing, yeah, it depends how you define racing. It's a good question.
True.
But
True.
we've had like 30 to 50, depending. I used to do 2 a year when I started, and that was just a little too much. So we focused it down to just the May one. But I think 30 to 50 is the general range. We don't always know. We get a lot of local riders sometimes make the call when they see the forecast at the end. But yeah, and they're split out between the routes. I also have a 400-mile loop that goes back to DC, comes through Harrisonburg, and that's just a little simpler with transportation logistics.
Okay.
So that one we did the first time last year and was pretty popular as well, based on that valley route.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, it's a good crowd.
Anytime you do the traverse, there's always that logistic struggle that you go through.
Right.
How do you get from start, especially when it's that long, going that far? But I think something like that, there's a tremendous amount of planning that goes into tackling an endeavor like that. So that's part of the adventure, maybe, that's part of it. How long does it take for you to develop a route of that caliber, and how much annual maintenance on the route, not the physical route, but on maintaining the route, because things change. How much does it require, that type of maintenance?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, the first question, how long does it take? I spent 2-3 years really working on it. Like, wow. I think I did, 5 to 7 passes on the full length, always trying to improve it, which is a lot of time in itself. Just always trying to find, like, is there a better option for this stretch? Does it all flow well? Am I convinced there's not a better option? That's kind of how I approach these things. And then how all the resupplies flows and spaced out well. But annual maintenance is kind of interesting. Like, we have enough people now riding it that I get pretty quick reports, and sort of building up a website. And then there's a couple of Facebook groups of people who ride in Virginia and one for that route. And yeah, it's pretty quick. If anything changes, somebody sees it and flags it. And then it's more a matter of responding to that and trying to adjust the information.
Right.
If there's like a major construction thing, then I may have to go out and just see what the options are. But I really scouted the corridor so thoroughly for 2 or 3 alternates, basically, that sort of know what the backups are. Right now, it's pretty easy to switch it up.
Because you kind of already got them in your back pocket, so to speak.
Pretty much.
Yeah, nice.
Do you commonly get feedback about stuff here and there that needs to be adjusted, or is it, you spend some time on it, it's pretty bulletproof?
It's pretty solid. There's a big power line construction project that's crossing the region. That was a pretty big disruption. Every year or so, there's one bridge that's being rebuilt. That takes forever. But it's actually, you'd be surprised. It stayed pretty much the same. I think if it was more single track route, it might be different. But the Department of Transportation maintains the roads that are VDOT, and then the Forest Service maintains the forest roads. And unless there's some key connection point that's impassable, a bike can get through almost anything.
Right. What's your favorite section of TransVirginia?
I really like the section that's close to Harrisonburg. It's up on the Allegheny Ridge through Flagpole Knob and Reddish Knob, which are the 2 high points around here. I don't know if you've ever been in that area, but
sure have.
It's around 4,400 feet. So it's sort of our big climb from town. We can ride less than 30 miles and climb 3,000 feet from our house. Most of that in the last 10 miles. So that section on the TransVirginia route, you're riding the ridge. It's the most remote, rugged terrain, and it has these big climbs. And I usually tell people, if you make it to Reddish Knob, you're probably going to make it the whole way. Yeah. But don't give up just because that part's hard, because it's kind of the hardest section, mostly because of road surface.
Nice.
So I love that part. I also really, really like the last 100 miles into Damascus. You have these beautiful forest roads through the Mount Rogers area that are generally in pretty good shape, punchy ups and downs. And then the last 20 miles are all downhill.
All downhill on Virginia Creeper.
Yeah, on the Virginia Creeper, yeah. So, it's kind of surreal because you drop off White Top Mountain, which is the highest point on the route. It's not quite 5,000 feet, but pretty close. all the way down to White Top, which is at 3,000 on the road. And then you have this 17-mile stretch on the Virginia Creeper Trail, which is like, if it's empty, you can bomb it. And if it's not, it's like dodging people who haven't ridden a bike in 30 years.
But the good part about that is everybody's going downhill because the shuttles take them to the top. And then they get on their bikes and just fly down. I ride up it when I go out there and ride up it and ride back and forth from Damascus, and it is always sketchy when you're climbing up. Just don't do it on a weekend. Just don't do it on a weekend. So a prospective rider who's thinking about TransVirginia, what do they need to know? What's like if you had to give some advice? What advice would you give to that rider before they attempted the route?
Sure. Yeah. That's that point about Reddish Knob. That's the hardest stretch. Okay. There's sort of levels of the different routes. If you're not quite up for the hardest one, maybe try the valley route first as an experience. It can be pretty remote, and don't count on having phone service. Right. I mean, a lot of us go pretty out there, but you may not realize how far out you are. But there's a bunch of ridges above 4,000 feet, and between those ridges, there's often just no signal. So if you're not doing the Grand Depart, like I always take an InReach with me. It saved a lot of headache and liability kind of, just on different rides. I don't know. It's fun. Just enjoy it. Like I designed it as a touring route before I even thought about putting a Grand Depart race on it. So in some ways, I think that's still the best experience to have, like, not missing half of it by riding at night. Like it's all really that good. Like, be present, be aware of what's happening around you. Stop at all the country stores, talk to the people everywhere. Like,
Let's switch gears and talk about Grayson Gravel. And for purposes of full disclosure, through Gravel Travel and Dirt, we have an adventure that's coming up in May on the long haul from Abingdon to Pulaski. So talk to us about Grayson Gravel. Where did that come from? And tell us a little bit about the route.
Sure. Yeah, so this has been a really interesting project for me as well. It came from TransVirginia in a way. Like the folks in Grayson County, they sit directly between the Virginia Creeper Trail to the west and the New River Trail to the east. The trailheads of both of those rail trails, take people away from the county. So they had this interest from the tourism department of like, how can we somehow get people to ride in Grayson County? But we don't have a lot of resources. Like, we'll never see a rail trail here. There's no rail corridor. A greenway would be impossible, basically. So they approached me because of TransVirginia. They were just sort of Googling around, like, how do we figure this out? And they found TransVirginia. They reached out and said, hey, do you think you could help us figure out something like TransVirginia? I was like, that sounds really interesting. So we made a plan to try to find the best gravel route to connect these rail trails that, didn't require building any new infrastructure, but just using the roads they had. And if you look at the state GIS for unpaved roads, they have like this incredibly dense network of unpaved roads. And then if you look at the Strava heat map, at least then, there was no heat, like, anywhere. Like, nobody was riding bike there. So this became even more and more interesting. So I spent, a lot of time down there looking at all of these options and came across what I think is the best way to connect these two rail trails and pass by local businesses to support the economic development goals that they have, and to just give the best riding experience. It's just like absolute wonderful place to ride and to explore, and I think it has a really bright future for gravel cycling and bikepacking. It just needs to get put on the map more. So it's amazing you guys are going there, and everybody who's been to Mount Rogers or Grayson Highlands State Park knows it's one of the best parts of all of Virginia. But people don't seem to know how beautiful these little roads are too for riding.
I think I'm the classic target, because I've done Virginia Creeper numerous times, and I've done New River numerous times. And New River, in my opinion, I've always found it amazing that we would always start down in Gay Lacs and ride up to the junction and then come back down to Freeze and then go back up towards Pulaski and kind of make it a little like couple of night adventure kind of thing. And I was always amazed at how few people there were on bikes on New River. and it's such a gorgeous trail.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing.
I mean, the population density is pretty low there, and the economic situation is not amazing either. So tourism is kind of how people see, progression and hope, I think, in that field. And honestly, there aren't that many businesses or places to stay away from the main road. So the rail trails bring some of that, but then there's this space between, and it's just like, these beautiful little agricultural areas, livestock farms, really punchy, steep climbs. Like, actually, the Grayson Traverse was the compromise for one of the least hilly ways to cross the county. There's much more challenging ones if you ever want to see some of those ideas. But yeah, it's approachable if you don't try to do crazy distance, But you guys will love it. I mean, it's the best.
And I should say it's more than just a route. There's so many different options: the traverse, the long haul, the different way. There's the loop.
The loop's good.
There's a lot. I think we're going to go from start in Abington on day one and kind of make it a shorter day on day one and stop at Virginia Creeper Campground. And then day two, we're going to roll into Independence. That's going to be a big day. That's like 50-ish miles and maybe a little bit more. And
a lot of climbing,
about 5,000 feet of climbing on that day. And then Independence to Foster Falls, and that's like a 40-mile day. And then we're going to finish in Pulaski with a real short day, just doing like 24 miles to wrap it up and give people the opportunity to kind of get on the road. So I think we've laid it out pretty good. Thank you for all of the effort that you put into it, because
it's great to see people using it.
Oh yeah, I made a couple of different little resupply additions to the route. I think on the day going into the long day, I've got a little finger that goes up to Wilson Market. I tried to keep them about the resupplies about 20 miles apart, so that it was 2 or 3 hours of riding before you would get to the next place that you could grab food, water, and all that. So, but thank you because y'all did all the hard work over there. So, so same question: what's your favorite section of that whole Grayson routes community? What would be your favorite section of all of it?
Yeah, on the Traverse route, which you guys are doing, there's this stretch after like the Grayson Highlands State Park area. That's this really long up and down gravel corridor. I think it's 10, 12 miles of gravel. I think you'll know it when you're there, but you just kind of get lost in the place. That section's probably my favorite. You're right along the North Carolina line. You dip back and forth a few times without knowing it. The street signs are like people's names that live there. It's just like it's just sort of way back out there. One interesting thing that happened after making the route is the volunteer tourism director of Freeze. She was all curious about it. She doesn't ride bike, but she had like an SUV or something, and she just like drove the whole thing because she was just so curious about it. And she wrote this article called "Time Travel with a View." Just like these places seem timeless, and like we love to ride them, but like we had people taking side by sides out or ATVs, and like the Republic open roads, but like the route gave a mechanism for local folks as well to sort of explore the corners of their county that they hadn't seen before.
They didn't know.
So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, exactly. So
That's cool.
There's a really cool stretch to going into Freeze at the end along the Elk River that is a sort of a surprise highlight.
Okay.
You'll remember it when you get there.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I love the little town of Freeze. There's some really cool stuff, in my opinion, that goes on there. I've done a little bit of the homework. They have the like Thursday night music thing that goes on. We'll miss that, or the timing won't be right for it, but kind of neat place. So this one, the next route that I want to dive into is new. Probably not a whole lot of people know about it. Hills and Hollows. I'll be honest, I was looking at the website and the pictures literally made me salivate. It just looks like an amazing place, and it has a story to tell.
Yes. So the story of the Hills and Hollows route, it's a route that connects these 8 memorials to families who used to live on the mountain that is now Shenandoah National Park before the park was created. So in the 1920s and 30s, there were more than 900 families living there that were displaced. Some went voluntarily, incentivized. Some were forced out of their homes. Warrants for their arrest. As the wagons leaving, their homes, their churches were burned to the ground by the government, basically. So this is a lot of people, right? So this is like 100 years ago. It's sort of within living memory of people's grandparents and children at the time. And most of these families moved off the mountain into the valleys around the park, and have a really sore spot for the federal and state government, and government in general, because of this event, and have this nostalgia and just a painful history for them. So there's an NGO called the Blue Ridge Heritage Project, which had a mission to remember these stories and constructed these 8 memorials, one in each county, that lists all the family names, and it's kind of just it's a memorial to that whole experience. So the route was the brainchild of Alan, who works for Greene County Tourism. He's a cyclist, bike tour, and he really wanted to see some way to help tell the story and of course bring travelers to the area. And so we discussed the idea and decided to try to make a route that goes the whole way around the park, connects all the counties, kind of as a memorial in its way to the story again, but also as an economic development project. And it's really compelling story. I mean, it's very interesting. A lot of people who live in the area who aren't from those communities aren't aware of this because it's kind of been a long time ago. But when you think about it, we know the park, but we don't always realize, how this was a painful memory, because a lot of us are used to hiking and recreating in the national park. So it's just a whole different way to sort of look at that story, to think about public and private land, to think about access and equity in public land. And for the cycling community, we also aren't allowed to ride any unpaved surfaces in the national park. So this was also an exercise for me to think about how can we present the edges of the park and the roads that used to go over the mountain. So there used to be all these dirt wagon roads that these families who lived there would use to go up to their farms and homesteads, up and over the other side. Some were, going back hundreds of years, thousands of years with indigenous communities. But the park, when it was created, actually cut off these roads, and they weren't public anymore. You could walk on them, maybe, if there wasn't private property, but you couldn't ride bikes. So part of designing this, there's a 300-mile loop that goes around the park. It's at 22,000 feet of climbing. It's about a quarter unpaved. It's fairly accessible. But what I did as well was I rode almost every dead-end road that hit the park boundary, which was like more than 1,000 miles of dead-end roads. It was kind of this incredible experience to like go into all of these. And that's where the hills and hollows came from. Like a hollow is that, the hollows, hollers, whatever the colloquial pronunciation is. But like I got to see these slices of the area around here and all the subcultures and the family groups and who's running for local office or sheriff or whatever. It was super interesting. But it really like helped me understand like this is such a complex thing with the history of this park, the politics and the story, and think about how do we. This is my backyard too. I live about 30-minute drive from the route. Often ride in this area, so
that's like one of those things that when you think about it, it's so obvious, but yet never would have entered my thought process as I would have been enjoying that park, or that's very very compelling to consider that aspect of it. Now, does the route itself ever actually dip into parkland, or does it stay outside of it?
It intentionally stays out because it's not legally permitted, except for Skyline Drive, which is a paved road through the park.
Right.
Cyclists use that often. It's kind of more traffic than I want to suggest people riding on, but tons of people ride it.
I've done it twice.
But I added these, these 8 side routes that go to the park boundary on these old roads. So I included those as sort of add-on excursions in the write-up on the website. So if you want to have that gravel experience of the old road, you'll just hit a gate that says like park boundary for bikes sometime. and so it kind of, maybe it's not that inspiring, but some of these are like within 0.2 of a mile of Skyline Drive. That's the only gap you're not allowed to ride. Some are like 4 miles. But it's actually started an interesting conversation with the national park itself about like what would it take to allow gravel cyclists or bikepackers to maybe use some of these fire roads. Like, could we consider a policy change? And I'm hoping that this route's creation is sort of perhaps an inspiration to a case study to try something and let people ride more of the park, because it's a public park, right?
Yeah.
And and as I talked to these families who were displaced outside the park, some of them were like, no, the government took my land, so you can't be on it. And some were like, it's a free country. Who can tell us we can't ride our bike here or there? Yeah. So it was really interesting just to see. And I think the route invites those questions of how do we protect public space, but also make it accessible to people.
It opens your eyes to the clash that is there. It's so apparent. That you just don't even think about it. And from a tour operation standpoint, if you don't dip into that parkland, you're avoiding that commercial use authorization. Yeah. Which I certainly.
If you guys are running trips.
Which I certainly don't mind.
Sure, it's such a simple route as well. It's a loop, so you can jump on anywhere. It's like, within an hour of DC on the north end, really close to Charlottesville, Richmond, Roanoke. So super accessible. It's pretty fast rolling compared to a lot of bikepacking routes. You could ride anything probably from like a 32 to 35 millimeter tire up to 40, 45 would be tons, and there's camping, there's lodging, there's all kinds of things. It's meant to be used and be accessible and tell a story.
Nice. I love that. That is absolutely on point. And it's hillsandhollows.org. I'm going to make sure to put a link in the show notes. And that's really fresh out of the printer, isn't it?
We just released the website within the month. Yeah.
Nice.
So
I love it.
It's gotten a lot of attention. Yep.
Nice. So, what's next for you? Any other new routes going to pop up in a month or two? Any new things in the works?
Not in a month or two. Not in a month or two. This stuff's still growing. There's a lot of groups, interested. I think, of course, cyclists are always looking for new things to ride.
Right.
Another personal project I've been playing around with for a little while is a massive return loop from Damascus from the TransVirginia. So a route that I'm calling the Blue Ridge Divide that would use the Grayson Gravel traverse, head out to Galax, and then what it would do is follow the Blue Ridge east of the TransVA route all the way back up. So this is and the concept was try to hit all of the best gravel roads and climbs along the Virginia Blue Ridge all the way up to the Potomac, basically. Beautiful. And it would make this massive, I think it's like 1,200 mile loop with over 10,000 feet or something. Or sorry, 100,000 feet. It'd be a massive loop, a big challenge, but it would solve that transportation from Damascus problem.
That's one of the things that we're kind of probably the last piece that we're really struggling with on our trip is we go from Abington out to Pulaski. Well, then how do we get everybody back from Pulaski to Abington? Gap and Canal have a well-developed commercial shuttle system where you could just call somebody on the phone and say, hey, I need to get, bikes and riders back from point A to point B. And I've called around and sent some emails with no response. So there's a business opportunity there, I think, for somebody to jump on.
There is. And there's a few folks that might do it if you want to. We can follow up with that. But there's some shuttles out of White Top, which is partway across.
Yep.
But you might be better finding someone from Abington or Pulaski if you can. It's tricky. It's like, it'll come eventually. But it's that chicken and egg thing where you have to have enough people using the route to warrant starting a business, to make the business sustainable, to provide the service.
I just think with all that activity in Damascus, the smallest little town that's got 12 bike shops, you could throw a rock in Damascus and hit a bike shop. That seems like they've already got that shuttle thing that runs up to the top of the hill there. That something that they could easily kind of jump on.
There's people who can do it. It's just a matter of convincing them to do it for you. But there's definitely that opportunity. They're just used to taking people to White Top who then come back down. Yeah. So part of it's just also saying, hey, we want to do this thing. We think there's a new opportunity for you. And the tourism folks in Grayson County could probably help too. just
Wow.
nudge people.
Very good.
You know, there's a whole community around this stuff.
So what else have you got cooking? Have you got any trips in your future? What else you got going on?
Yeah, I've got some really cool international trips this spring.
Nice.
I'm doing a ride I got a grant to do a storytelling research project in eastern Turkey and Iraqi Kurdistan. So I'm going to be actually I'm leaving in like 2 weeks to go ride a bike from Urfa in Turkey to this northern region of Iraq. And I had worked with hiking trail development projects there, 2 points in my life. And so, yeah, I'm going to be doing that in 2 weeks, supported by the Abraham Path Initiative, which is an organization I used to work for when I lived in the Middle East. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. I'm going to tell the story on social. It's a pretty exciting region. It's not where people think about taking a bike, so
It's true.
Yes,
I can see that. So that's a bit of a dilemma. So
everyone's like, "Oh, you're going to the Middle East again." Yeah. So, and then in April, I'm going to head back to do one of the Camino routes, one I haven't done before, that starts from southern Spain. But instead of starting in Spain, I'm going to actually start in Marrakesh, Morocco, and do a 1,500-mile trip up through Morocco, across on the ferry from Africa to Europe, and then ride this old route, which was a Roman route in Morocco and Spain, and end in Santiago in northern Spain. So,
that is so
Marrakesh
cool.
is where the Atlas Mountain Race starts, which is this Friday, so you'll see people there. But they head sort of east and make a loop. I'm going to retrace the old Roman sites and Roman roads and head north.
I think
Use that as sort of research for a new book.
I think Cynthia just headed out for that, right? Cynthia Carson?
She's there. She's in Marrakesh right now.
Yeah.
They're also staging.
Saw
She's
that
a friend. She's from Lexington originally, so she and Abe and all of these bikepackers,
We've had her on the podcast a couple of times, talking about Gravista and
awesome.
Some of the races that she's been. She's really blown up, man. She's really turning on the power of that Watt wagon, so to speak.
She's all in.
Yeah,
yep,
true.
She's got an exciting year planned.
Any shout outs that you want to give to like sponsors or partners or folks that help you do what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think my wife and my family probably are the biggest supporters that allow me to kind of spend this time out there and all of this. There's a really amazing community of bikepackers in Virginia that's grown over the years that I think, it's one thing to sort of catalyze and start some of these projects, but it's really the community that holds it up and keeps it going. So I think there's just to remember that this is really all about people in the end, and those people make this stuff work.
Nice.
And the people like at the county tourism level who've really believed that investing in some of these routes will build a better life for the people living there, like Tracy Allen and Josh. And I think it's inspiring to see people who may not have as much experience with cycling, but really believe and see the opportunity to just sort of put something out there, and people will come. Said it
numerous times. The economic impact of the bike community is strong. It's big, and it's not going to take very many people to look. And you look at like the folks at Grayson County. They didn't have to look very far. They could look at the economic impact of someplace like Gap, and easily. So you don't have to.
Creeper.
Yeah, you don't have to do that homework ahead of it. Somebody else has already done that heavy lifting. And all you got to do is just execute on the back end of it. But they got to have open eyes. You're right. They got to have open eyes. So got to be able to see it.
It's like taking pride in these dirt roads in your community. You see them as an asset, not just, it's a backwards, unpaved road. It's like, this is what makes us who we are. And we need to find a way to leverage this to, build our community. So I think part of it's just shifting a mindset. And I think gravel cyclists have a role in that.
Nice. Well, listen, David, thank you for taking, and we've taken a lot of time of your time. Thank you for chatting with us and walking us through all of this. And thanks for all the hard work you're doing. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, and it's much appreciated. Much appreciated. So have you got just a minute to stick around for this or that?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Sure.
So as our guest, I will give you the first opportunity to answer. You can defend it or not. Joey, I will answer next, and then you will muck it all up at the end. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First item on this week's this or that, TransVirginia or Grayson Gravel?
Hard one. I think TransVirginia, though.
Yeah.
The first and
The
original, the OG
original,
route.
yeah, the OG. Well, having ridden a few parts of Grayson Gravel, I think I kind of have to pick Grayson Gravel. Although Larry and I have talked about TransVirginia this year in the fall, maybe. Joey?
Well, I haven't done either, but TransVirginia popped up in my head last year.
Yeah.
So I think that's on my list of things to do.
Cool.
Obviously, we'll do Grayson, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Excited about that.
And they make a great loop together too. You can loop them that way as well. They both intersect.
You want to take a couple months off, Joey?
Yeah.
Go ride bikes with me. The second item, Tailfin or Old Man Mountain?
Tailfin curious right now, so I would say Tailfin. But
I am rolling the Tailfin setup on my working, and I very much love it. I did get the carbon one with I got the trunk bag, and I got a couple little mini panniers to sit on the back. So far so good. Been very impressed. I love how easy it goes on and comes off, because I don't always keep that rack set up on my bike. So and so far so good on durability. Joey?
Fun fact: no one liked their Tailfin in Florida.
That's true. Well, no, I think that was more about packing a lot, and I had this same issue when I had bags on the forks, and then I had those mini panniers.
Yeah, no one could get away from death wobble.
You got a little wobble, so there's some learning curve. I think you need to get that weight forward.
Putting Dave's Old Man Mountain together at the shop was really nice.
Yeah,
that was a nice rack.
Yeah,
and the one he got works with multiple setups. You can change to the front if you wanted.
That's cool.
The through axle kit was easy.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Both of them have tapped into that through axle thing.
Yeah. But his seemed a little more universal. It's not as sleek and sexy looking, but it's really robust.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that Old Man Mountain axle pack is pretty genius that they just released too.
Yeah.
That doesn't spin around your fork.
Yeah.
Props for that.
Yeah. Third item, turkey bacon or chicken sausage? Because I've given up red meat.
Well, I actually gave up all meat a year ago, so
Oh!
I'd say neither.
So neither one. Sorry about that. I should have done my homework.
Yeah, that's all good.
Which one might you miss more? How's that?
I don't know. Turkey bacon.
I'm gonna go with chicken sausage. There's a chicken sausage that they do at Mod that they put on their pizzas. It's just really good. Turkey bacon always just seems like flat, kind of like it doesn't imitate the original as well, in my opinion. Joey?
I don't know. Turkey bacon in the oven's really good.
Yeah.
But I've had some really good. I got chicken sausage for dinner. No, I'm not home for tomorrow night. Some chicken sausage.
Nice.
It's delicious.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Last item this week's This or That. Ride through broken glass. There's a story with this one, David, and I'll share with you. Ride through broken glass or horse poop.
Wet, loose horse poop.
This was our experience Sunday on our ride.
Bro, I would say broken glass. I think I've been both of those places.
I'm tubeless, so I'll go with broken glass as well.
Yeah.
I'm going broken glass.
Yeah,
That poor horse.
we have a very large. We rode in St. Mary's County yesterday. We have a very large Mennonite and Amish community, and you know you get that's one of the reasons that the roads down there are so great, because they have the big wide shoulders. So fantastic. But we named this horse Steven, that was obviously in front of us for a while, because we think Steven was having a bad day. Well, listen, David, one more time, thank you again for playing along with This or That, and thank you for joining us. And we're going to shut this thing down.
All right, good to do. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt. If you've enjoyed the podcast, maybe consider joining us on our Patreon family. We really do appreciate all the support, and your monthly donation of just a couple of bucks helps us keep this thing going. Joey, how can folks get in touch with us?
Our website is graveltraveldirt.com, and our Instagram handle is at MidAtlanticGTD.
Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt is recorded this week from right here in the Patuxent Adventure Center all the way out to Harrisonburg, right? Actually in Harrisonburg? Mm-hmm. Got it. Thanks for riding along. Till next time, do good, be nice, go slow, respect others.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.